It's my pleasure to introduce to you Naomi Seibt.
Hello everybody and greetings from Germany. It is an honor that I have been welcomed back to a conference of passionate scientists who not only have the courage to make a change in the climate debate, but also in our critically endangered climate of freedom. Never before has society been so divided and so eager to cry for help from authoritarian measures to intimidate and undermine even their own neighbors. The climate debate has been driving a narrative of fear and delusion for years. But now we find ourselves in a cluster of fear porn, not only from the climate crisis, but also from a global health apocalypse, allegedly. And we all know that the exact same people who spread this sensational narrative now never cared to provide proper health and nutrition education for us to sustain our natural immune system ever before. And this mirrors something that we have seen in the climate debate for years and still see today. The same people who praise natural purity rarely leave the house to experience nature. Their eyes are glued to screens every day for 24 hours sometimes, and they manage the temperature of their environment with air cons and heaters. They are sheltered from this nature that they praise on social media. It is hypocrisy. And this cognitive dissonance is exactly what we are trying to fight. It is not real. Climate alarmism is not real. It is a symptom of a mental health crisis that our society has deliberately been thrown into. I have not met one climate activist who has shown genuine interest in the climate science and educating themselves on what they are promoting. Because activism is a drug that gives them a sense of purpose and social acceptance. And that is exactly what especially the young generation is lacking these days, because they are driven into this mental health crisis with fear and they don't see any kind of perspective for their future anymore. So what is there to hold on to? It is climate activism, it is social justice activism, all of which are just euphemisms for something that none of them really understand. With fear-mongering, the elites have tried to suck the soul and spirit out of our clear and curious minds. Why is nobody curious anymore about the science? What we are doing here, all of the speeches that we can listen to at climate conferences like these are truly fascinating, interesting, and I think that many of those young people would enjoy them as well if they were exposed to them, if we weren't censored the way that we are, if the youth especially, and basically everybody on the other side of this climate debate, this climate narrative, if they weren't so sheltered and kept in a cage of misinformation, of one-sided bias. And they keep telling us, listen to the science. But here is the science. And they are not listening. So who am I and what is my role in all of this? My name is Naomi Seibt, and you may also know me as the anti-Greta. The media have slapped this label onto me to depict me as some sort of anti-Christ to the climate religion. But science is not a religion, and therefore I prefer to see myself as an antidote to irrationality and panic. And if I wasn't as resilient as I am, then this whole media slander could have turned me into exactly the kind of resentful monster that they wish I was. Because then it would be much easier to defame me. And I have experienced every kind of attack on my character and every kind of false accusation about alleged affiliations with ideologies that I have nothing to do with whatsoever, because my only objective is the pursuit of truth. And that's how it always has been. I have always been very interested in science, and I have participated in science competitions, and this has truly been my passion for forever. I always loved philosophy. I have passions all over the place, and my main objective is always to keep an open and curious mind. But apparently that is not PC anymore in today's society. I operate as a scientist in the world in every single domain. A scientist always has to stay open-minded. It's an obligation, and he or she has to tackle every issue from all sides of the debate. A scientist considers as many factors as possible, and a scientist never lets defamation from the media or whoever deter them from always striving for truth. We don't fall prey to the defamatory media because our heart beats for what we are working on, for truth. The most dangerous aspect of the state of the global discourse is not just that one side is being discredited as incorrect, but rather that anyone who dares to contribute a scientific argument that goes against the mainstream is vilified, demonized, deplatformed, defunded, and censored, removed from the global discourse. And therefore, even if somebody then has the chance to speak up again, he or she might just be too intimidated and will shy away. He might just stay silent. And those who get a glimpse of truth and have the courage to see beyond their biases, they hide in the comfort of obedience. And what history has taught us is that that is the path of tyranny. Once a few lies appear and we don't do anything about them, things can go wrong very quickly. And if we are not cautious, if we don't stand up for the truth, even if it's uncomfortable, then we sacrifice all of our freedoms. And therefore, I commend all of you for speaking up in the face of injustice, because that's exactly what you are doing. Just by sharing your research, you are doing something good for all of society. You are doing something for the state, the climate of freedom. So naturally, the question arises, what made me turn to a different perspective? I often hear the argument that I benefit from being the fresh young female outlier amongst the climate skeptics and political dissidents in general. But the people who say those things don't see the years of me struggling as a social outcast and the backlash that I got from even friends and within my own family, and of course, as we all know, the media. This is not fun, but it is something that is worth it for me personally, because I cannot lie to myself. I was never after fame, and I made more sacrifices in terms of popularity points and financial opportunities probably than I gained. I could have gone down the path of studying at university and maybe getting a high-paying job and maybe even being a public speaker for something that is trendy but not meaningful. Fighting for liberty and the truth is an obligation. We all know that. That's why we are here. Tyranny is the product of compliance, and I don't want to be a part of that, and neither do you. Knowing that, there's just no way that I could sacrifice my integrity, because I would not be able to wake up every day and look in the mirror and see a version of myself that I do not want to expose the public to. I want to be as truthful as my morals. And now, there's a good side to everything. I find myself in a community of heroes who will not succumb to the pressures of defamation, because they know how important the truth is. We don't believe in instant gratification. We know that we need to go through a dark and dangerous tunnel to get our true freedoms back. Because what's the alternative? Lying to ourselves, putting on a mask, and living the same meaningless, matrix, pretentious, marxist lives like everybody else? Everybody else is suffering too. They try to suppress their symptoms by living this artificial and superficial life of following celebrities, trends. But is that meaningful? Is that something that fulfills them truly? At the end of the day, are they happy? Or are they trying to constantly distract themselves with Netflix shows and just trying to numb their true thoughts? I think that's not real. That's not really the kind of life that any of us want to live. And so we rather face the dangers and the difficulties that come with our professions than to lie to ourselves. And I think that's what makes us a stronger community. And that's why we have already won. Because we have won unity, friendships, and true love. That's not something that everybody can say about their lives and about their communities that they operate in. A lot of it is just pretentious, fake friends. We don't have that because we support ourselves even in the darkest of times. And that's why there will always be light as long as we stay together and stand up for each other. And now, what is our next mission? To share exactly this kind of hope with the terrified people whose hatred against us is just a symptom of their own fear. Tyranny is a parasite, and we can only beat it and eradicate it forever if we open ourselves up to a conversation with our opponents. And I know how hard it is. I know how difficult it is to fight through the censorship. But their attempts to censor us will fail because we approach the world with compassion and honesty. And that will shine through every veil that the media try to put over our true intentions. Social justice is a euphemism. We believe in true individual social connections, hugging each other, being there for each other, and not this cold-blooded, second-hand welfare slave system. Ecofascism is a prime example of that. We win because we are greater than our grudges, more adamant than our adversaries, more truthful than our tormentors, and more compassionate than the cowards who want to control us with their hybris of censorship. Truth is uncontrollable. The scientific method will prevail because politicized science is not science at all. It is stagnation, and stagnation is the death of science. But our open, free minds are untouchable in the end. And therefore, panic will persist until we resist. And we resist now. With faith, with love, with kindness, and with honesty. Thank you so much.
I was messaging with Naomi on WhatsApp. She's watching this right now. Let's hear a really loud cheer for Naomi Seibt so she can hear you in Germany.